Zach Lavine to the Golden State Warriors actually has some serious legs just 1 week before the deadline. And when news like that is out in the universe, we're going to have a little bonus emergency rapid fire show to break down all things Zach Lavine and see if this makes sense from all the angles. Let's cover it all. First of all, the reports are saying that the Warriors have introduced their 2025 first round pick as a part of the conversation. They have now been in the mix, or at least have been inquiring or internally thinking about multiple players. Those players, Jimmy Butler, whose price tag has been lowered, although it seems more of like wishful thinking. They say when there's smoke, there's fire. I think this one, when there's smoke, it's actually just a little bit of fog from Pacific. You know, that's all it is in this situation to me. The other one is Vucevic, which can happen with expiring contracts and maybe that protected 2025 first rounder, as we said. Maybe that is a possibility. But the one now that apparently is piquing the interest of the Golden State Warriors, depending on his cost, is Zach Lavine. Zach Lavine is having a great year. That right there would add something to the mix that Buddy Hield, as of right now, does not bring. Now, Buddy Hield does bring the catch and shoot aspect. Unfortunately, Buddy Hield over the last 2 months has been shooting a mere 29% from three-point range. The experiment has not gone well as of late. And if you want to upgrade, you upgrade at the shooting guard position. Zach Lavine can do that for you. He makes a lot of sense for a team that prides itself on the movement, the long-range shooting. You can see Lavine popping into the system right now and being a very, very good fit. Now, there is locker room concern about who the Warriors would send away in the hypothetical trade for the pretty high salaried Zach Lavine. 2 guys would have to be attached, one of 2. It would either be Draymond Green or it would be Andrew Wiggins. You would have to throw in one of those 2, and then you could throw in Gary Payton, Kevon Looney, or you could make the deal sweet somewhere else. But those 2, with expiring deals after the season, they would make sense there. Matt Kolsky and I talked about if they were to give away, the Warriors were to give away Andrew Wiggins for Zach Lavine, the pros and cons of making that move. I'll have that conversation in just a minute. But I did want to get into something Anthony Slater said on 95.7 The Game. I believe it was Willard and Dibbs, Mark and Dan. He said, quote, "I think something gets done, and I think it's even possible they throw in this year's first. I think it's possible to be used if it's protected, just because I think there's a desire from the front office to shake it up a little bit, to see something different. Maybe try a different rotation piece, reposition a salary, just to make a little bit of a better mini run this year while also protecting the assets that will allow them to go bigger game hunting this summer." If that's the case, then I guess Zach Lavine is just that smoke from Pacifica. But Slater said he'd also be stunned if the Warriors were to trade away Jonathan Kuminga this year. I don't like the talk of just the marginal move, getting rid of a protected first-round pick to make a quote-unquote mini run. My move can't be a buffer. I want some direction of what we're doing in the future here. This move has to take me into the future, and a Vooch deal, it seems a little bit like a buffer to me. You know, something that'll help you right now, but we'll be looking back at this thing in 2 years and saying, what did that move really? Butler to me is a quick high, Jimmy Butler. I compare him. It makes sense. Bear with me on the analogy. It's a little ridiculous, but I compare Butler to a stuffed pizza. Clearly, I had a stuffed Chicago-style pizza in the last few days to bring this up. And, of course, I'm the type of guy that's eating it and thinking about the NBA and how I can compare the stuff. Anyways, in the moment, Jimmy Butler, like the stuffed crust, stuffed deep dish pizza, seems really good. It may end up being really good. But eventually, that decision to go with the second slice of that style of pie, aka extending Jimmy Butler after the first go around, because he wants an extension after this season, and you're going to have to pay him a whole lot of money. Eventually, that decision to go with slice number 2, it is going to kick your ass. It's going to take time to recover. Meanwhile, the traditional pie over Tony's, just as good an option, and it won't kill you tomorrow. That traditional pie is Andrew Wiggins. Because if you keep Andrew Wiggins, even if he's not in play the next 3 years, even if you don't think he's going to finish out his contract on the Golden State Warriors, at some point it becomes valuable. He's on a team-friendly deal with the way he's been playing this season, and that's a contract you don't just want to flip for nothing. Is Jimmy Butler that much better this current minute than Andrew Wiggins, based off a 27-point Wiggins against the best team in the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder? I don't think you can say that. The stuffed pizza is not that much better than the traditional pie, to where you can make that move and really, really take a lot of time to recover if it does not go well. Trying to match 50 million, then offering Jimmy Butler more is like diving into that second slice. If the first didn't destroy you, that second piece will. And the second contract is for a 35-year-old. No thanks. Now, I have no analogy for the Zach Lavine trade, and I like Butler as a player. It's just what's attached to him that is making the deal just an impossibility to me. Extending more and getting rid of all that money to somehow bring him in. I don't even know how you could potentially do that. So we will see. I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself into this. I'm looking at the biggest negative, and clearly that is, one, getting rid of a first-round pick, two, getting rid of multiple expiring contracts potentially, and depleting your depth, which has been a calling card of this year's team. It's a strength in numbers type team, and you'd be getting rid of that to bring in one player most likely in Zach Lavine. That is a negative. Another negative is you're getting rid of Andrew Wiggins, an NBA champion who's an all-star for the Warriors, who's had an incredible season. But positionally, if you think Kuminga can play the small forward position, and I mean, he was coming off the bench anyways, and you think you can slide him in there, Lavine can be your two. It does make sense in that regard. You would add in a great, great 3-level scorer that somehow, some way, some why gets a reputation as not one of the elite players in the NBA. But when it comes to elite, just scoring the basketball, he can do it all. He could play as a primary or secondary ball handler. He'd be very good for this Golden State Warriors team. Matt Kolsky gave his opinions on it. I mean, this guy, Kolsky, KNBR and 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area for many, many years. But he's from Chicago. He grew up in the Michael Jordan era, and since then has struggled through a lot of bad Chicago Bulls basketball. But in the last 5 years, Bulls had one really good team, and Zach Lavine was the anchor, DeMar DeRozan, of that team. Lavine was really good. Kolsky has a different spin on Lavine than some just box score watchers. And here's what he had to say on last night's show.
I mean, here's the issue. We're basically talking about Jimmy Butler or Zach Lavine, right? And because those are the guys you would have to put Wiggins in to get the money up, right? And even then, you're going to have to add a couple more pieces. No other team can take on 5 guys when they're giving up 1. So those trades don't really work, right?
I think Butler's all smoke. I think that's all smoke. It doesn't make sense. Lavine makes sense.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about those two guys, you know, they both have their drawbacks. For Jimmy, it's more about age and health. For Lavine, it's more about defense and the price tag. What they both do that Andrew Wiggins, despite his many good qualities, does not, is give you a legitimate bucket getter in tough situations with consistency. And, you know, Butler's 36. In the case of Zach Lavine, honestly, man,
3-level score, man. Like
I watched that guy. Like I've seen most of the games in Zach Lavine's career. Okay. And I really think the guy has gotten a tough reputation given what he can do. He is, and I know this is damning with faint praise, but like he's at least the equal of Buddy Hield defensively, which is to say he's like moving around out there. He's not Jordan Poole or on defense, right? He's big enough to put a hand up in people's face, and he's quick enough to like be around. He's not a good defender. He's not even an average defender, but like it's not embarrassing out there. Okay. So I think his,
So 114.3 is his defensive rating if you take that into measure.
Yeah, but defensive rating takes into account how much people score when you're on the floor, and everybody scores all the time against the Chicago Bulls, in part because of their center who plays no defense. Anyway, I'm not making the argument Zach LaVine's a good defender. I'm just saying he's not Jordan Poole out there. On offense, he legitimately is as dangerous a scorer as all but 5 or 7 players in the whole entire league. Nobody can stay in front of him. He is, at 29 years old, still quick enough, athletic enough to beat anyone off the dribble. He is still one of the most vertical guards in the league in terms of playing above the rim. He is shooting 44% or something like that from 3, and he's been in the 40% neighborhood for several years now. He's having his best season scoring outside of 3-point shooting. He's 50% overall this year. And here's the thing. He takes a lot of tough shots because of the situation he's been in his whole career.
Mm-hmm. And how would he fit into this offense?
Beautifully. He's not a guy who's afraid to move the ball.
Beautiful.
And he's an incredible cutter off the ball. Like, Zach LaVine would put an absolute rocket engine in this offense. And look, Andrew Wiggins can have some nice nights. And usually the feeling at the end of that night is, man, I wish he would do that more often. When Zach LaVine has a scoring night like Andrew Wiggins had tonight, that's just Wednesday, right? So that's why you would make the deal. But if you're gonna make the argument to me that it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, that Andrew Wiggins, yes, you cannot count on him to be a bucket getter down the stretch of games. You cannot count on him to bring aggressive offense every night, but you can count on him to defend the best wing scorer on the other team every night. Which one's worth more? LaVine certainly gives the Warriors something they need and is a more traditional star profile in the league. Am I positive you're a better team exchanging Wiggins for LaVine, especially if you also have to send a guy like Looney out the door? No, I'm not positive. I think for LaVine, I would try it because I'm personally a fan of his, and I would love to see what Curry and LaVine can do offensively next to each other. Especially if Kuminga's in there too. Mm-hmm. And LaVine is 29.
He's young. He's 29. You have him for a couple of years. And so many times in the NBA, you look at a player that's in a bad situation, that's on a bad team, and you kind of hold it against him, right? But you got to envision like what he could become in the system. And it was just 3 years ago where the Bulls had one of the best records in the NBA through the first half of the season, and in large part due to the way Zach LaVine was playing. He's been healthy all year. There is a lot to like there. And then the one argument that you can make, and Wiggins has been awesome. It would be no knock on Andrew Wiggins. It would just be about fit. And that fit is because you have a guy, Jonathan Kuminga, when healthy, was coming off the bench that we think can play the same position as Andrew Wiggins. That's where you say, is Kuminga a 4? Can he play the 3? We'll see. But clearly they have something at least up their sleeve in terms of what they would do, because it's seriously sounding like out of the Vooch and out of the LaVine and out of the Jimmy Butler, like this LaVine one's picking up steam, and it could actually happen.
Well, here's what I would say too, is the real issue in terms of the positional problem the Warriors have had all year long is that right now, Kuminga, Wiggins, and Draymond, when you're healthy, are 3 of your 5 best players. And it's basically, in order to put them on the floor together, Draymond has to play center, right? And they don't want to put Draymond through that for a good reason, I think, given that he's sitting out right now because his body's not holding up. There's no way to solve that. So if you're committed to Kuminga, as they say they are, and Draymond is obviously a part of what they have planned for the next couple seasons, I think Wiggins just kind of becomes the odd man out there in terms of it doesn't make a ton of sense to play those three guys together at the 2, 3, 4. So if you can replace Wiggins with a guy who's a natural fit at the 2, again, right now, and there's no reason for me to assume it would be different if they were fully healthy because Kuminga was coming off the bench right before he got hurt, right? Buddy Hield is their starting shooting guard. So
for all the Warriors fans out there, they're saying play him less, find someone to take that spot. You know who would slide into that spot from day one. And then you could talk about putting Podziemski at the backup shooting guard position. If you're keeping Schroeder, you don't have Podziemski as a primary ball handler.
And you would be asking Kuminga to take on the Wiggins role of defending the best wing player on the opposing team. And he's a reasonable candidate to do that. And I think, he'll be asked to do less on offense if Zach Lavine is here. So I think he can probably handle that defensive assignment. Will he be as good as Wiggins? No. But does the 5 with Lavine make more sense as a basketball team than the 5 with Wiggins? I think maybe it does.
All right, let's get to a few of our sponsors. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying. You were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worrying. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. Today's episode's also brought to you by Gametime. Today's episode's also brought to you by Gametime. The Super Bowl is here, and it's an experience that brings all fans together. Playoffs in general are fantastic, and Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events, specifically tough games to get into, even easier. It filters out the fluff, shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. That is the rapid fire show today of Locked On Warriors. Just the YouTube installment. You can check out our normally scheduled show on the audio podcast. Friday's show we'll have on Kevin Dana. We did a lot of talking about Quentin Post. We got into a little Kevin Knox, who's been incredible in the G League. Any chance we were to see Knox on the big squad in the Bay Area this season? He gives his take there. And then we just banter about the team as a whole as we head to about a week before the deadline. Golden State Warriors back to it with 2 games in the next few days. It's Friday against the Phoenix Suns at Chase, and then it is Monday against the Orlando Magic. That does it for the show, everyone. Thanks for joining. Carly Walters saying peace.